at the Montana Office of Public Instruction website. And as of February 2024, there was 24 open music education positions, and 19 of them were from Class C schools. Yeah, I mean, this issue scales into a much larger issue of over 1,000 open educator positions in the state. And so I looked into sources starting out just to kind of get an idea of what all factored into this. And I really kind of fell into the teacher shortages. I found it pointed to a massive web of issues and factors that were at play. And so to dive into all of my research that I did would take way too long today, so I did my best to consolidate it into 4 main areas of study. Yeah, so the first study that I really looked at was the COVID-19 epidemic. It was identified as a likely contributing factor to the teacher shortage in just the last 5 years, when it is compared to the 2008 recession. So both events have paralleled each other with inconsistent teacher salaries and a lack of program funding. Sources detailed extended controversy around the prioritization of other academic and extracurricular subjects over music, specifically among rural school districts that became increasingly inflamed during the recession. Budgets were a central issue to these findings. In a hearing that I looked at, done in Washington, D.C. before the Committee of Education and Labor at the U.S. House of Representatives on June 15, 2020, detailed significant budget cut concerns around the COVID-19 recession. In the opening statement, Chairman Robert C. Scott stated, "It is important to note that states and school districts entered this recession with already crumbling infrastructures, a teacher shortage, 77,000 fewer school workers, and about 2 million more public school students compared to pre-recession numbers. These setbacks have not been distributed equally. Our continued reliance on local property taxes to finance public education has ensured that public schools with the highest need are forced to do with less." Another look at Montana's Office of Public Instruction showed that Montana Public Schools general funds included 44.7% from direct state aid and 36% from local property taxes. Montana school districts collectively spent $1.2 billion through their general funds in 2020, 2022 and 2023. And it accounted for nearly half of all K-12 school spending. So after kind of getting an understanding of the implications of COVID-19 and on the rural public school budgets, I felt the need to explore kind of socially why music programs receive less funding than other programs. And it kind of took me down this rabbit hole that encompassed individual structures of music educators. So a parallel study to Wyoming's rural school district stated that 65% of educators planned to remain in their current jobs for 5 years, but only 21.4% expressed intentions to relocate after a year, and 12.1% expressed that they wanted to leave the profession altogether within 5 years. The unique nature of music educators' work was detailed to be an important addition to research connected with teacher attrition, migration, and career paths, as music teachers are more likely to teach in multiple buildings, different from other colleagues, which in turn contributed to higher reports of isolation. I found that researchers expressed rural music educators' use of social class theory, pragmatism, and narrative inquiry methodologies, to be a consistent trait of teachers and programs that were successful. So this approach to teaching is going to be infused with rural ideas. Yeah, so after looking at kind of just the individualized experience of these music educators, I took a look at the curriculum required for the state. And curriculum was a place of concern that I experienced as a music educator myself. I experienced a lot of inconsistencies between programs and shared resources, and I also witnessed that with a lot of my peers that I was working with within the district. So I researched Montana's curriculum for arts, and that's called the Montana Content Standard of Arts. And I found that the expectations were very broad and vast for the resources available to Montana public school systems. So defined in the document is a concept of artistic literacy. And that encompasses the importance of creating, responding, performing, presenting, producing, and connecting art to the students' lives and the world around them. Something that was important to note was the 4 artistic processes, and those are detailed as anchor standards, is the terminology that they use in the document, that guides students through the curriculum. So the processes consist of creating, performing, presenting, and producing with the additive of responding and connecting. Within the document, music standards are outlined per class in regards to broad music theory and performance, but the terminology is not specific, and it leads to differences in interpretation. The document also offers no resources to execute the expectations of the curriculum. Yeah, and so then the last notable bit of my research that I did was on student engagement. And my studies found factors that were more likely to keep students enrolled to be, private lessons, parent opinions, and involvement, and quality of the available programs. So students who took private lessons, of course, were documented to enjoy the classes more, and they were also documented to continue their education later into their middle school and high school years. It also said that, students who played all the way into adulthood received quality instruction in both elementary, middle school, and high school. And the literature across the boards really detailed that students who continued that practice had a very well-rounded education very early on and consistently. And then the very last notable thing about this research that I found to be pretty sad was that on average only 5% of seniors in North America enroll in elective music programs. And it was found that retention rates massively dropped off after students' freshman year of high school. So, thank you guys so much. I will be performing a piece for my EP today called Tired of Love.
tired of tears streaming down my face. Other times stripped away, facing another loveless day. And I'm so tired, I'm so tired, so tired, tired of love. I'm so tired, I'm so tired, so tired of being alone. I'm tired of missing you, so tired of the pain. I'm so tired of feeling this way. And I'm so tired of love. You won't even look me in the eye. And then I realize you're so tired. You're so tired of loving me.
So I want to thank everybody so much for being here. I have just a handful of people that I personally want to thank. I want to thank my vocal professor, Elizabeth Croy. I've spent 4 years here at the university studying under her, and she has been absolutely incredible. She has taken my background in classical music that was a little disjunct and disjointed, and really helped me cultivate my technical ability, and so I'm super grateful to her. Chris Beal, who is my accompanist all 4 years, has been just a wonderful support system to me, very loving, very patient when I've been at my best and also at my worst, I would say. He also graduated with from the same high school as my father, which is kind of funny. And then I would also like to thank Dr. Jason Bolte and Dr. Linda Antaz for all of the time that they have spent supporting me through this degree, the wonderful classes that I've experienced with you guys. I'm very grateful for, so thank you. I also want to thank Professor Jeremiah Slovarp. He asked me to be his intern on 11th and Grant. That was an incredible opportunity for me and experience. And his classes around recording have really helped me to realize that that's something I'd like to pursue. So big thanks to him. I want to thank Dr. Kirk Ahmet and Professor Graff, two of the professors here that I've had for University Choir, Voces Luminis and Montanans. I also want to thank Dr. Eric Funk for his time spent with me on acoustic comp. He really helped me be able to visualize and realize my music for the first time, especially when it came to notation. So to him, I'm very grateful. And then I want to thank Kif Landek, Chris Williams, and Caleb. You guys have been absolutely amazing, supportive of me, always willing to help me out and troubleshoot when I didn't understand stuff. Kif has helped me write the majority of the music for my EP, and I'm very grateful to that. And then Chris and Kif have both been studio musicians, as well as helping me program a lot of the MIDI for my pieces. So thank you guys. And then of course to the rest of my classmates and my peers, just the experience of getting to be a part of this community, how supportive and loving you guys all are. I'm really grateful. It's really special, and that's something you find every day. So thank you guys. Yeah, Brent Wolf was my vocal teacher all the way since the age of 7, all the way through high school, and he's continued to follow my music career. I can't thank him enough. He's the reason why I was able to even come here and continue to pursue music at the collegiate level. Debbie Beal was my music teacher growing up at Hobson School. She's incredible, she's amazing, and she continues to support me now. So I'm grateful to her, and then the rest of the community that I grew up in. I want to thank my mom and my dad for all their time spent trucking me to performances and helping me to meet some really amazing teachers and mentors along the way, as well as their attention to my character and my work ethic. And then my siblings, I'm the oldest of 7, so I have a lot of them. They've been nothing but supportive. Yeah, and then my extended family. And then last, the 2 photos I have up there are from last year, my time spent as a teacher. This is my kindergarten class, and then above was my class from festival, my middle school, my high school choral students. Yeah, so a big thank you to all of them. And thank you guys so much.
Sorry, one of very few non-Mac users in this school. Maybe. Just want to make sure it's playing out the right audio. Yes, you are. Cool. All right, good evening, guys. I'm Chris, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about vocal mastery and its role in gaming, as well as the overall game development process through sound design, programming, and AI. So everyone has a musical instrument from birth, and barring trauma later in life or biological factors, we can do all sorts of things with it. So my research was, how far can we go with no training and with training? So the first thing that's important to know is we all have vocal tracts, and it's not just your voice box, it's everything between your lungs and all the way up through your nasal passages. We can all speak, and one of the things that we do early on is we learn our language by imitation. So we imitate our parents, we imitate the native speakers around us, and eventually later in life we start learning syntax and grammar and all of that. And when you're older and you start learning another language, you do it by the same process. You imitate the sounds being produced and you learn what they mean. So without training, we can all talk, we can all speak, we can all sing to some extent, not quite as well as Christina can, and we can all make silly noises. And with training, we can take that further. So we can learn to mimic sounds to near perfection, to the point where a lot of people cannot tell whether it's a person or not making these sounds. And we can create new sounds that we don't find in nature. This gives us unlimited or near unlimited musical and creative potential that is being currently explored through means of beatboxing and contemporary vocalists using things like whistle tones, overtone production, and multiphonic singing, and in the metal world through harsh vocals and distorted vocals. We can even imitate animals. So here's a short video of 2 beatboxers making the sounds pictured at the top of the screen.
Autobots roll out.
It's important to note that there are no vocal effects on that video. So the next thing that we'll look at is a game that was played with Will Ramos of Lorna Shore called Animals or Humans. I'm going to give it away. The first sound you're going to hear is a Tasmanian devil, and the second sound is the gentleman on screen making a very similar sound. He laughs because he knew it was him. So I removed a few slides because a lot of what I was going to cover in those slides is done very well in this video with harsh vocal production, and one of the things that we can start doing now that we have training and we have studied what can and can't hurt us. And I actually got to meet and speak with this gentleman at the Game Developers Conference, and the reason this particular video is important to my creative works is I wanted to make a game where every vocalized sound that you hear on screen is done with at least a base layer of a human voice, whether I added distortion or some sort of plugin on top of it, or it was just straight voice acting. But this gentleman takes it a little further.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Croteau, president of the Monster Factory.
Now, for those of you that have played The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2, he is the clickers. So he is the man that did all the monster vocals for that. And it's important to note, too, there were no effects on that. So that kind of concludes the research portion of things. So let's talk about video games and video game sound design for a bit. So I'm going to go over the process of how I created this, how I came up with the concepts, and what I used to accomplish my goals. So the first thing I did was come up with a game design document. As you can see, this one is 11 pages for a 2-ish hour experience. If I were to do a larger game, it would be considerably longer. But what this does is it outlines basically every step that I need to take to go from concept to deliverable. So first thing I had to do was pick an engine, and there are a lot of them out there. Godot is great for 2D, it's open source, it's relatively new, so there's not a lot of documentation. Unreal has been around for forever. It's an industry leader for 3D and animation with Unreal 5.4 that they just released. It is arguably the best animator that is not a purely animation software. Unity does a lot of the same things, it's just not quite as powerful, and they really screwed up with their monetization scheme lately. So I decided not to go with them. And then Game Maker Studio is one that I've actually worked in before, but it doesn't integrate middleware like I wanted. So ultimately, I chose Unreal. And I chose it for a few reasons. It's easy to learn with the blueprint system, which is shown here, where it's very much connect the dots. You figure out what module you want, you connect it to things, and it works. It has a back end of C++, so if I wanted to go deeper into it, I could. It's an industry leader, and there is tons of documentation. But the big thing was easy middleware integration. So what is middleware? It's a piece of software that goes in between what you're using to create and your engine. So in my case, I use an audio middleware, and there's a few of them out there. There's Wise and Fmod. For physics engines, there's Havok. And for AI systems like AI pathing, there's Kythera and Havok. So I chose Wise, and there were a few reasons for that. It's widely supported. It's widely well documented. There's free courses that you can take in order to prepare yourself for the certification systems. It's one of the most widely used middleware softwares in AAA gaming, and it has a lot of really cool features, and it's relatively easy to understand once you start wrapping your head around it. So one of the things is real-time parameter control. So I use this for the sprinting system in my game, where there are 3 different speeds that your character can breathe, and it takes data from the game and decides which one to play. And instead of having to do extremely complex coding in the game, I can just set it and forget it. So why use a middleware versus something like MetaSounds? Well, MetaSounds are hard. So the top two pictures are what I would need to do to integrate sprinting. The post-event one, the big box, that's all I need to plug in for the game to play the sound that I designed. The bottom picture is the MetaSounds. That's just for the opening menu music. That's not counting everything else. I don't need to do that when I have the AK post event where I create the music, drop it into Wise, hit post event, choose the music, and on play, it just starts. It also has random containers. So in this video, I go through and I kind of show what I mean. So I have multiple footsteps in this, and it will randomly choose one every time the event is called. So I utilized this for a few different things. This is me making weird noises and adding effects to it. There's no other sample in there but myself and a software called Dehumanizer. These, you can see me setting states. That's another thing that Wise does great. I can test things before I ever have to pull it into the game engine. And if it doesn't work, I can take care of it in Wise. So now it's randomly playing through vocalizations. There are 4, and it will just pick one. So now you'll see me set a different state. This is how I troubleshoot whether or not certain audio is going to play in certain situations. And now we're playing different audio. So the other really beneficial tool of Wise is the profiler. What the profiler does is I connect my computer to the game, and Wise will read all of the audio assets coming out of the game and tell me what's playing. So as it plays this music, you can see on the screen there's a couple errors, which means I gotta go in and figure out what's happening. But now that I know what's happening, I can fix that. You can also see all of the events that have been called on play, and as things happen, it shows me the other events that are being called. This is really useful when I need to figure out why audio isn't working, which happened a lot. So, for the final part of this, I want to show you guys the pre-alpha trailer that I am eventually going to release. This shows pretty much everything I did. I did all the AI pathing, all of the texturing. I may have taken the models from some free sources because 3D modeling monsters is hard. But it's all of the audio integration for audio that I currently have, all the texture modelings. Keep in mind this is pre-alpha. This means that this is in no state for other people besides myself and anybody I pull into the team to play, to test. Now, I do end up planning to release this in the fourth quarter of 2025. There's a few people I'd like to thank. I'd like to thank the faculty and staff, Dr. Jason Bolte, Dr. Linda Ontas, Professor Slovart, Professor John Henderson, for putting up with me for the last 3 years. And Kif, Christina, Ash for sticking with me through the tough times. And everybody else that I met along the way, you guys have really made this a fun experience. So thank you very much.
All right, so hello everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Nathan. So to start, I'm going to briefly mention what my research paper was about. So it was about voice actors and comparing English voice actors to Japanese voice actors regarding things like vocal range, pay, and characters voiced. So about my creative project, the inspiration actually came from a conversation with Jeremiah Slovart about a year ago. It was regarding music, specifically about a Japanese trap music playlist he found on Spotify. And after talking about it and listening to it, he suggested I should try to make some. So around the same time, I took the world music class with David Charles. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what the class was about. However, there was a section of the class on Japanese instruments and music. It was sometime after the class that I decided I wanted to make an instrumental Japanese fusion album with a trap and lo-fi genre focus. So the album consists of 5 Japanese trap and 5 lo-fi songs. They are also sampled from mostly traditional Japanese songs, and they are mostly the koto and shamisen, or Japanese string instruments. There are some songs, mostly the lo-fi ones, that have a shakuhachi, or Japanese flute, in them, and then the names of the songs are also Japanese. So the first song I'm going to play is titled Izanagi. It is from the trap genre, and its name comes from the Japanese mythology, and he is the god of creation. And then the second song is titled Amaterasu. It is from the lo-fi genre, and its name also comes from Japanese mythology, and she is the goddess of the sun. Let me make sure my audio is connected first. Okay. Thank you. And so this one is from the lo-fi genre. Thank you. Excuse me. So, I'd like to touch a little bit more on how I sampled the songs. So, I decided to loop the samples. So basically, found a clip of the song, and then I cut them up into 8 or 16 bar loopable clips. I could have chosen to do like a chop and screw, which would have been to put the clip or the whole song into like an actual sampler, and then use MIDI notes to control certain sections of the song and play certain sections, which would have been easier to sync to the drum tracks, but I wanted to try to keep it as close as like to the original song as possible, and so that's why I chose to loop the samples instead of do like a chop and screw. And so I guess I'll end with just thanks for being here, and thanks for all the support. Thanks for the staff and putting up with me for 5 years. And then thanks to my parents for supporting me my whole life, and for being here, and for all my extracurriculars. So thank you guys.
Bear with me, I have to make some modifications here. Oh, there it is. I swear I'm a tech major. All right. There we go. All right, I am Trevor Lind. Before I get to the creative project up on the screen there, I just wanted to talk briefly, and I guess I won't walk away from the microphone. Sorry, Dr. Antos. Talk briefly about the research paper that I conducted this semester, just briefly to make the most of my time. So I wanted to look into the involvement of AI tools with the audio editing post-production process and kind of what level of involvement they're going to play in the future as well as currently. So one of the biggest sources of research that I had was a audio repair methods survey. So basically I went to 3 different poor quality, noisy environments, and I recorded audio segments of just me talking about nonsense. And then I took 4 different popular audio editing techniques, so different plugins, as well as doing things kind of myself in a more manual way. And I compared those blindly, organized them into a survey to some music tech nerds, and had them rank which one produced the best result and which one produced kind of the worst result overall. And before I get to those results and the kind of trend that I discovered, just briefly, 2 of the methods, Isotope RX10 audio editor, so kind of a standalone DAW. It has all these different modules. You can pick and choose and apply them with destructive editing to kind of fix and bring your audio clip back up to a higher quality. So I did that as one of the methods, just kind of manually in a sense. They're all AI-based tools and modules, but I picked and chose which ones to use, how much to apply, and kind of the order of operations. And then another one of those methods was using the same software, the standalone DAW. They have a repair assistant. So you point it towards some audio, it learns from it, and it decides what modules it wants to apply and then how much. And so that was one of the other methods. And then the other 2, I think, was a Clarity VX from Waves, a plugin, and then Adobe Speech Enhancement, which is a website. You just drop your audio in, and it fixes it up for you. So the interesting trend that I noticed with that survey is for 2 of the 3 recordings, one was alongside 19th, windy, breezy, traffic going by. The other one was in a kind of an echoey studio room with a AC running. And for those 2, number 1 and number 2 ranking was the manual method by myself. So using those tools by myself, kind of using my ear to pick and choose what order and what to do with that audio. And then ranking as the worst result for both of those was the repair assistant. So it was very interesting to me because it kind of shows that even though both of those methods have access to the same tools and modules within the standalone editor, just having the human there to act as kind of a quality assurance was far more efficient and productive at producing something that will sound good to a human, which makes sense. I am human, so hearing what I heard and then passing it along to more humans, they liked what I chose to be best as opposed to what the AI told other AI to do. So obviously it was kind of a brief survey and there's a lot more research to be done into it, but at least for now it appears that there is some kind of an edge that humans have in the audio editing process. So kind of a conclusion that I was drawing towards the end of the paper is that there is still a place for a human, even if it's just to turn some knobs and push some buttons and tell the AI what direction to go with it and what exactly to do, which is good for me because, speaking of which, I'm very interested in working in podcast production and audio editing as a career after graduation, so it's good that I might possibly have a job here at some point. Here's hoping. So for my creative project this semester, I wanted to make it beneficial to me. Obviously, I wanted a good grade, Dr. Antos, but I wanted to make something beneficial that I could be proud of and make high quality and point to if anybody's curious about what I'm able to do with audio and editing and post-production. So hopefully I can continue to develop a career. So I made the most of my time, and I decided I wanted to find out what it's like working as a park ranger within the National Park Service, which, by the way, is so much more than the national parks. You think of the NPS, you think of Yosemite, Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, but there's so much more to the service than just the big, large national parks that so many millions of people visit each season. And that's, there's 429, they call them units, all around the country. These are national historic sites, national monuments, national battlefields. So there's so much more than just these kind of, dare I say, a little bit overhyped national parks. And I was hoping to explore some of these and not only figure out what a ranger does all day, but kind of compare how it's different based on where they're at. Yellowstone, I walked past probably 5 permanent park rangers on the way into the visitor center, whereas the episode I'm going to play for you, Grant Coors Ranch, there was one dude there, and we interviewed. His name was Dan Shook. So, and that is the one I would like to play because he's just such an interesting guy, and you could tell that he really enjoyed what he was doing, and he chose the right path as being in education and interpretation at this site, which, by the way, if you're ever interested, I think it's 2 hours away, Deer Lodge, Montana. I've driven past it all the time. Didn't even know it was there, but it's super, super cool, interesting location, and I'll let my past self explain some more of that.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Arrowhead, where we explore the diverse and unique experiences of rangers working within the National Park Service. My name is Trevor Lind, and I'll be your guide throughout this journey. For today's episode, I'm joined by Ranger Dan. He has been with the NPS for 12 years, and he is currently an interpretive ranger here at Grant Coors Ranch. Did I say that right?
Yep, yeah, you did. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, because I've only seen it.
Yeah, most people say Coors or Coors, but yep.
Like the beer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get asked that a lot, but it's different. It's got a K instead of a C there.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, very welcome. Good morning.
I appreciate your time. Good morning. Bright and sunny morning here, just in Deer Lodge, Montana.
Yep, I think spring's finally maybe going to stick around.
We'll see. Just to start things off, what is Grant Coors Ranch? What is its purpose? How did it come to be? What can you do here? Tell me about it.
Sure. So Grant Coors Ranch is kind of more of a unique park than most parks in the Park Service. We're a National Historic Site, so quite often a lot of National Historic Sites are pretty small, a statue, a few acres, whatnot. We're at just about 1,200 acres or so. And then with a couple other properties things, we come up just about 2,000 acres. But what's pretty unique about this site is that it's pretty much the only site that tells the big picture history of the American cowboy. So we're not unique because we have livestock. There's lots of parks that have livestock. Yellowstone has livestock, Grand Canyon, things like that. Yeah. But the fact that we're still very much an active cattle ranch is very unique. It's been an active ranch since 1862. This is where Montana's cattle industry began. There was cattle up here already on this ranch years before the first cowboys kind of left Texas heading north. So the story of the cowboys happened right after the Civil War. All the soldiers who were fighting for Texas, they went back home, found all the cattle they left behind and multiplied. There were so many cows in Texas, you can only get about $4 for a cow. If you could get to Kansas where the train was, you got $60. That started in 1865. This ranch started in 1862. And so it was established by a French-Canadian fur trapper. His name is Johnny Grant. He was with his father, knew that beaver was his past. He knew it wasn't his future. It was being over-trapped. He was in what's called Pocatello, Idaho today. It's called Fort Hall at that time. He saw the settlers walk across the Oregon Trail and realized that those cattle were so exhausted that he could take one of his healthy cows, trade it to them, and take 2 tired cows in return. And each one of those trades actually doubled his herd size. So Johnny had a few thousand cattle, looking for somewhere to stick them. He knew this valley was perfect. The location of it, the mountain ranges, it's a snow shadow. We don't get as much snow as the rest of the state does. So he built his ranch, established it, got it all built, and then gold was discovered in Montana. And And so instead of having to push his cattle to California, Oregon, the miners came to him. He was pretty excited, started making a lot of money. One of those miners was Conrad Coors. Coors was a young German immigrant, no money, just the clothes on his back. Got out to Montana, hoping to make it rich. Soon realized that only a fool tries to make money looking for gold. The real money is selling things to those fools looking for gold.
Exactly.
And so that's called mining the miner. And so he started to butcher in these camps very often, early, established himself, looking for his own herd by the mid-1860s, purchased the ranch here from Johnny Grant. Johnny headed back up towards Canada. Coors then, he was just looking for his own herd, but little did he know that'd be the beginnings of his 10 million acre cattle empire.
Wow.
And for just about the next 30 years, it would be all the way across Montana, parts of 2 Canadian provinces, slivers of 5 other states. Then in 87, we had a pretty rough winter. Nothing worse than we get today, but that was the winter that kind of proved that bison should have been on those plains. Cattle never should have been put out there. That winter, just about 40 to 90% of all cattle froze to death across the whole Great Plains there. Those losses were devastating, and ranchers like Coors, they were able to survive because they understood haying. That's what we call modern ranching today. But instead of putting cows out there and hoping they can survive through winters on their own, now you fence it in, control water rights, grow hay, eat yourself through those winters. Kind of revolutionized ranching. The grandson then took it over, got the ranch through the 1920s, the 30s, the 40s. Those were critical times in ranching history. A couple of wars in there, depression, a transition from horses to mechanical things. And then in the 60s, his wife really was the driving force. She realized that nobody in the family really wanted to be ranchers. This whole place was here. It could be turned into a museum somehow. Contacted the Park Service. The Park Service had been looking for a ranch for a while. They knew this part of history was missing. And so eventually they came to agreement. The Park Service took this over in the 70s. The national government officially became cattle ranchers at that time. And then ever since, we try to tell the story as authentic as we can. So I'm dressed like a park ranger today. We have the house down there that's got all the original furniture in it. When we do tours of that, we try to dress like this in the visitor center. But if we're down below there in the historic site, we're usually dressed as cowboys. So in the blacksmith shop, we're dressed as cowboys. The chuck wagoner is cowboys. On horseback, we're cowboys. So it's a very unique National Park Service site because we tell not just the stories here, but we're also in charge of telling an entire era of American history. And so we focus on not just saying the stories.
As much as I'd like to let all 2.5 hours play, I think that would probably incite a riot. So if you do want to learn more about the ranch and Dan and the other 4 locations I went to in Montana and Wyoming, behind the Arrowhead, it should be on almost all platforms, as Dr. Antos discovered. Not quite all of them yet. It does take a bit of time to get to all the directories, but yeah, just some final thoughts on that. I kind of understand the podcast from start to finish process, at least from the recording, because I've been working on one with the College of Nursing on campus, but this was a new experience for me because I hate hearing my own voice, as I'm sure a lot of people do, yeah. And I'm not very good at kind of the playing pretend as a journalist, so this was kind of a unique experience to branch out and create something myself instead of waiting for someone else to make something for me to sit down and edit. So that was a lot of fun, and I feel like I should give the generic thank yous before I head off. Got to thank my parents for encouraging me to continue, and after my associate's degree back in Seattle and moving on to Montana State. It's an excellent decision, I think so. Thank you to all the staff who've left a lasting impact on my career moving forward, and then Ashley, my girlfriend, for putting up with how grumpy I've been trying to finish all of this. So thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night. You have an apple, right? Oh, thank you.
With the laser pointer. I found it in the drawer earlier, so I'm going to make good use of it. All right, cool. All right. So, hello everybody. My name is Tim Durgis, and this is my senior capstone presentation. For my capstone, I focused on the data security of audiovisual over IP networks. And in order to understand more about them and to furthermore go on to the testing scenarios that I would do, that I'll explain, I had to do a little bit of research. So what is an AV over IP network? They're specifically designed networks that send audio and video data over the internet. The data transmissions are, and this goes for outside of this too, but data transmissions are split into small pieces. Those pieces are called packets, and packets are often sent in any order to save time and efficiency and then get reorganized upon arrival. Low latency and high speed is desired in AV over IP systems, which means some data loss is tolerable due to protocols. Now, protocols, most of them are based on the OSI internet model, as you can see on the left. Yeah, laser pointer. There are 7 different levels, and they describe pretty much everything that happens on anything related to the internet. So, you know, yeah, read them, whatever. Some of the common ones you might know or have heard of include the Internet Protocol, IP, Transmission Control Protocol, which is TCP, the User Datagram Protocol, which is UDP. UDP and TCP are transport layer protocols that all deal with the transportation of data. So they fall under layer 4 of the model, and their uses vary depending on desired speed. So UDP is faster than TCP, and therefore, as I had already said, some data loss is therefore accepted because of that high speed. Audinate's Dante is one of these commonly used AV over IP platforms. Dante distributes digital audio and video signals over a specified network. It's capable of sending hundreds of channels over IP, and it replaces the need for point-to-point analog connections and replaces them with one Ethernet connection usually. There's their logo. So this formed my thesis back when I learned about Dante in Professor Slovarp's class and learned that it sent audio data over the internet. I immediately asked myself, how secure is that? So, in order to test this, I designed an experiment. So my testing phase needed to consist of an environment outside of the school, largely due to the cyber attack that occurred in the spring of 2023, I believe. Can't remember. So in order to do that, I needed to create my own mock environment. So the experiment setup would consist of several things. Number 1 was a source laptop where audio data would come from. Number 2 was the Dante virtual sound card, which is a product that Audinate sells that allows you to change your audio output on your computer to Dante virtual sound card, sending your audio data onto the network. Next, I would need a Dante-enabled audio interface that would allow me to output this data. I would need an attack laptop. In my scenario, I would be using a Linux virtual machine where the attacks would be ran. I would need a network switch, which replicates larger systems in huge buildings, essentially where all data is routed in and then routed out of in different locations. And then Ethernet cables to connect everything. The layout of all of these would be as follows. The laptop for the source would be my personal MacBook, the one I'm actually using. And then I would need the Netgear GS308 EP network switch that took me about 2 hours to find. Took forever. Those would be connected by an Ethernet cable. That cable would be running into port 1. Then I would be using the Focusrite X2P audio interface, connected via Ethernet cable back into the switch into port 2. And then I would have the attack laptop connected into port 3 with another Ethernet cable. So test number 1 that I ran was a replay attack. Replay attacks are a form of packet injection attack. And packet injection attacks usually consist of capturing packets from a data transmission, manipulating and altering those packets and then sending them back in. When this happens, they're sent as if they're coming from the original source, so the destination has no idea that they were ever messed with. This can cause a disruption in data since duplicates in UDP situations like AV over IP systems are often dropped. As a result of this attack, I was successfully able to capture data packets from the data stream. I did this by using, I'm not going to say all the tools I used for security purposes. I was able to inspect the captured packets and filter the captured data with an application called Wireshark. This allowed me to determine the destination port for audio data, which is publicly available. If you search what ports does Dante use, it'll tell you a whole list. Upon running the attack, the audio playback was successfully disrupted. As you can hear there, the audio just kind of got all choppy for a second and then resumed. So that was literally all I wanted to do, and it was awesome. You can imagine after weeks of testing, finally getting that to work, I was like, yes! So test number 2 was an MDNS spoofing attack. DNS and MDNS queries are requests that devices send to a server asking for data. Usually this is when they're asking for like, where is this device on like the network? So asking for addresses most of the time. The attack sends fake responses to these requests, essentially allowing the attacker to pretend like they're the desired destination. What this does is make the requesting devices send the data to a malicious or fake domain, therefore making audio data just disappear. Like it just goes to nowhere and you never find it. The results of this attack, I was successfully able to poison an MDNS query. I found that queries were most prevalent during device boot up, so when the MacBook was starting or the Focusrite was restarting. So therefore, the attack was ran while the devices were restarted. The attack was successful in delaying the playback resumption, so I did this while the audio playback was happening, and then ran the attack and timed how long it took. So I ran a control experiment where I found out it took about 24 seconds for audio to resume. When I was running the attack, it took about 30 seconds longer, which is fairly significant for how low level of like how this attack could be. As you can see in this picture, actually, this is from the attack computer. It says that I was able to send a poison answer to the X2P for my MacBook, which is not true, because it was the attack computer, not my MacBook. Test number 3 was a machine in the middle attack. This attack places the attacker in between the two devices, essentially routing all data through that device. It does this by changing the actual addresses of the device. Not actually, but lies to the other ones, more like. This causes each device to think that the attacker is the other. So the MacBook would think that the attacker is the Focusrite X2P, and the X2P would think that the attacker is the MacBook. All data, like I said, is routed then directly through the attacker computer, and it gives the attackers near limitless potential. It opens the door to more sophisticated attacks, like writing scripts that could drop audio data after a certain amount of time, or even trigger attacks after a certain event happens. The results of this attack is that I was successfully able to ARP spoof. That's another name for the machine in the middle attack, or it's like a form of it. My MacBook showed that the address of the Focusrite X2P was the attacker's address. Device restart was required for the results to show on this because I had to clear the cache on my MacBook. Audio data, however, was not disrupted in this because it just routes it through the computer. It doesn't mess with it at all. However, Wireshark was able to confirm that data was being sent to the attack computer. And as you can see in this picture, there's a request here saying, who has the address of the Focusrite? Tell it to the attack computer. The initial broadcast from the Focusrite X2P says, the Focusrite is at this address. That's a MAC address. They're a little different. That is device specific. IP addresses are network specific. Then immediately after that, there was another, where'd the pointer go? Okay. There was another response saying that the X2P is actually at the attacker computer MAC address, which is not true. It went on to then tell the MacBook that it is also at my attack computer address. So in a real world, whoa, I hit the mic stand. In a real world situation, these attacks could be operated in succession to wreak havoc. So say packet injection attack disrupts audio. The audio engineer reboots the system because audio cut out. The reboot allows the attacker to successfully spoof an MDNS query. The audio data went somewhere, the engineer still doesn't know. They reboot the whole system. The full reboot then allows the attacker to conduct a successful machine in the middle attack, therefore getting rid of all music. Luckily, there's countermeasures to this. Network systems are obviously built for this. Within my test scenario alone, Dante Domain Manager has credential required access that will lock you out if you're unrecognized. There is port security built into network switches and other networks where it will lock ports upon unauthorized access. And then encryption is also utilized almost at every turn, including Ethernet, which has its own form called MACsec. I would like to give a special thanks to David Fletcher, Derek Jones, and Jeremiah Slovart for all of their help during this research portion, because without them, I would have been completely lost, and my results were largely based on work with these guys. So now I'll play 2 of my audio tracks for this video game that I'm working on. Unlike Chris, who had a whole document, 11 pages of how he was going to deliver his game, I've been told what they think the world setting is, and that's it. I've had no visuals, no anything. They said, okay, well, the world's going to take place in the future where AI does everything, and one AI that's designed to do Dungeons and Dragons goes rogue and resets the whole world to its campaign. And I said, okay. I'll try to do fantasy synth. So, with that, I'll play 2 tracks. So the tracks needed to be designed to be loopable. That is the other thing, because they finally shifted, and I think they're sticking on this. And if anybody from BHIS is watching this, I'm not bashing you. I love you guys, I promise. But they finally settled on making their game more of like a dungeon crawler. So the music now needs to be loopable, which is a fun thing on its own. So yeah, this is also the first time that anybody on the team, it's like a 7 to 10 person team that are doing this as like a side activity in this information security company that I'm interning for. And it's the first time any of them have ever done anything like this. So it's a new experience for all of us. So yeah. And here is a battle sequence that I finished today. And similar to everybody else, I would like to thank everybody who helped along the way. My parents for helping put up with me and just listen to things off and on as I send them to them. My girlfriend for putting up with me, similar to what Trevor said, for me being grumpy for the past couple weeks. And then all the faculty and staff that really gave great feedback and taught us, everything we know. Couldn't be more grateful. So with that, that is all. Thank you.
Janky. I apologize. I didn't know I had to do it like this. All right, how we doing, everybody? My name is Seth, and for my capstone presentation, I made an EP for my band Fritz Road. It's a rock EP, 4 tracks. I think it came out pretty well. So for my research topic here, I wanted to do something that kind of tied in to the process of producing an EP. So I looked at different sort of production styles in rock music and just kind of the idea of like overproducing something to make it like, alienating listeners potentially and just kind of not staying true to the genre. So I looked at what kind of styles and practices producers use to create the best and most successful albums in rock music. I looked at how producers avoid sort of overproducing music, and I did that by comparing like rock and pop production styles, looking at different composer or like producer interviews. And I found a big thing with rock production is that the relationship in the studio between the producer and the band is like very important to what the final product is. Like in my case, when I produced, I was a performer and a producer. So like most of what I had to do was just get my band to not be super frustrated with all the technical issues we always run into in this school, but it's what it is. And I looked at how pop production sort of involves creating like synthetic orchestrations and a lot of sort of sound synthesis around like a vocal mix of like a track they come up with, and how a lot of work is done outside of the recording sessions by a team of people. And I looked at some other sort of producer interviews. Like I looked at one with Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, who's another performer and producer on a lot of their records, where he talked about the sort of restraint he had when creating a lot of the Beach Boys more out there sort of stuff. And so the process I had of recording this EP, I joined this band, I think like October, November last year. I responded to a flyer they put up around campus saying they wanted a bass player, and I'm like, okay, I'll play bass, that's cool. And so we did that. We, throughout last semester, start of this semester, we wrote these 4 songs, and we recorded them in 2 days in early April. Our first day, we recorded all the instrumental tracks. And a few days later, we went to Studio A, recorded vocal, guitar, and some auxiliary percussion overdubs. And then I mixed everything in the studios here. I've been doing that for the last month or so. And we plan to release this EP very soon on streaming platforms. And so I think I gotta exit out of here to play these. But so, okay, here is the title track of the EP, Cold Shoulder. I sing lead vocals on this one. Can I get this? It's gonna work. It was working before. Oh, there we go. I had it. I'm not a very good music tech major. EP, Cold Shoulder. We wrote that one collectively as a band early semester, maybe around February or so. Yeah, I'm playing bass on this if I didn't say already, but so yeah, I was doing lead vocals on that one. This one, our guitar player Jamie is doing lead vocals, and this was one he had written previously before I joined the band that he wanted to bring into the rotation. It's a little bit poppier as opposed to that like kind of Led Zeppelin style rock of the other one. This one was pretty cool because I like double tracked the guitars using overdubs. I don't know why this doesn't work. It's getting, oh, I had it, there we go. Yeah, this one's called Chandelier. All right, yeah, thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. we're gonna release these on Spotify. I have all the mastering complete. Maybe next Saturday, maybe the week after. So I guess stay posted. Looking for Fritz Road on Spotify. I'll give the thank yous and whatnot. I want to give a thank you to all the faculty, really in this building, but especially in music tech, particularly Jeremiah with the Recording 2 class I did last year. That helped me a lot, preparing me for this. In addition to that, I would like to thank all my colleagues in this major and my family too for putting up with me because I'm kind of annoying. So yeah, thanks everyone.